For a long time, we had the baby born at the beginning of the movie, also in Zero G, also in a space station rescue, kind of a big James Bond 60s opening. But then I had this idea to put it in the middle of the movie and combine it with this Silver Surfer escape around a neutron star.
Phase hero. What are we going to say? Matt, congratulations, man. You did it.
Thank you.
I imagine this is like a nice pressure off your back to finally be letting people see the movie and they're enjoying it.
Yeah, it's been 3 years I've been working on this. It's a long journey, but I'm really proud of it. I'm such a fan of these characters. It's such a joy to be able to bring them to the MCU.
Yeah, well, so we're going to talk a few spoilers in this interview, but anything spoilery is going to go after the movie comes out.
Okay.
But I want to start with the fact that we've talked a few times at WandaVision. Now we're at Fantastic Four First Steps. Is there anything you think you took as a filmmaker from WandaVision straight into the production of Fantastic Four First Steps?
Well, in a way, they're both the only real families in the MCU, right? Wanda and Vision, obviously, husband and wife, their children, they may or may not really exist, those children, but to them, they're very real. Yeah. So, it is about true family in both of those. And so I think, bringing also some of the stylistic stuff that we were doing in WandaVision to this, obviously very different. One was a sitcom reality, but period nonetheless, and very specific in building a world. This one's retro future, that one was sitcom. But yeah, there are some similarities and definitely some things I added to my toolkit from that.
Yeah, man, and WandaVision was awesome, so it's good to hear that. The opening montage of this movie has so many references to Fantastic Four comics and going all the way back.
Yep, I see you've got it right
dude,
there.
It's awesome.
Giganto.
How did you kind of cherry pick the key moments that you wanted to put into the movie to pay homage without spending too much time on stories that have been told in a movie before?
Well, we were looking a lot at Kirby and Lee. I'm a huge fan of the Fantastic Four. I'm a huge fan of that initial run. Those guys created these indelible characters. They drew from their own personal lives, and that's what makes them so relatable. They're a real family, and they were drawn from their real lives. I think, Jack Kirby's daughter was named Sue. There was whether it was his dad or his uncle was Ben. These are real people to them in a way that they are bringing to life. So I was looking a lot at the comics from the 60s, that initial run kind of all the way up until, the Watcher and Galactus and the Surfer. All of that stuff was where we were mining most of our material. We were also looking at other runs too, Byrne and Hickman and all the, Ryan North's run now and Dan Slott and all these amazing people who've contributed to them over the decades. But we were looking at the 60s. We were looking at setting it in the 60s for that reason, getting as close as we could to the point of origin, where they were created, where they belonged, where we didn't need to apologize for their idealism, where they could embrace the space race and all of that JFK optimism of the era.
Yeah, and it comes through in the movie. This is a very hopeful movie, and I dig how you made them such a family. There were conflicting ways that Sue would be drawn or Sue would be written in comics.
Yeah.
And Kirby always drew her as a very powerful character. I feel like you aligned with Kirby in your portrayal of Sue in this movie.
Yeah, I think Sue's been on an evolution, and a really great one over the years. Obviously, Invisible Girl to Invisible Woman, that's a big promotion she's deserved. But also going from just being invisible to making fields to actually creating offensive weapons, sending light daggers, putting aneurysms, in people's brains. She's incredibly powerful. And I think that was one of the things I really wanted to get right in this. I love my girl Wanda Maximoff, and she's one of the most powerful in the MCU. And Sue Storm's right up there, right? And just trying to bring her to life in the best possible way.
We got to see them meet one day.
Yes.
We got to see them meet one day. The scene where Sue gives birth in a spaceship, in a escaping the Silver Surfer scene, was a standout moment of the whole movie for me. That whole sequence was probably my favorite sequence in the film. Can you talk about how you fit zero gravity, high stakes, one of the most important characters being introduced into the MCU, literally giving birth to it. Can you talk about nailing that scene down and how you pulled it off?
It's a really important moment for me too. I come at this movie as a husband and as a father, and I think the birth of my daughter remains the most fantastic moment of my life. It's such an incredible thing to bring a child into this world, and I was helping my wife, and she's doing all the hard work, and I'm just trying to be there. That the moment my daughter appeared for the first time, I just remember just taking my breath away. And I felt like I wanted to try to capture that, but I also needed it to be fantastic in other ways too, because it's the Fantastic Four. And for a long time, we had the baby born at the beginning of the movie, also in Zero G, also in a space station rescue, kind of a big James Bond 60s opening. But then I had this idea to put it in the middle of the movie and combine it with this Silver Surfer escape around a neutron star, and it was just like taking two ideas that I really liked, putting them together, and all of a sudden they felt like magic when they were put together. It's like birth is hard enough, but imagine doing it while you're slingshotting around a neutron star. You don't know if you're going to be able to get home. Everything. The stakes couldn't be higher.
That was my favorite scene. I said it, but man, it was great. I love the visuals of the movie. I mean, genuinely, I think this might be some of the best visuals, if not the best visuals Marvel's ever released. And I'm a huge Interstellar fan.
Yes.
So when there's shots on the side of a ship in space, and you're going around sort of black holes and all this stuff, I was curious if you took inspiration from any other, space adventure movies and how you kind of captured those cosmic elements that ended up looking so brilliant.
Oh, that's so great to hear. Yeah, no, I definitely, I looked at a lot of the most, brilliant space movies that have ever been made, including, of course, Interstellar.
I love that, because that's my favorite movie.
Oh, it's a beautiful movie. Yeah. And it's also a movie about family and about dads and daughters, about, children. And,
yes.
It hits me emotionally when I watch that movie, but I'm also just, in awe of Chris Nolan's ability as a filmmaker and the way he depicted space. It's extraordinary. But also, he's referencing Stanley Kubrick. And I think Kubrick was one of our biggest inspirations. We were kind of, when we talked about what the aesthetic of the movie was, it's where Kirby meets Kubrick. How do we bring the 60s Kirby aesthetic to a 2001 retrofuturist look at the world? Because both are happening in the 60s, both are, approaching the world in really brilliant stylistic ways. But in terms of other movies, Apollo 13, I mean, that movie is extraordinary. I love what Ron Howard did there, filming in actual zero gravity, using the plane, the Vomit Comet. Right Stuff, which was also a big influence on our score. Giacchino said, his theme is a combination of The Right Stuff meets the Disney Electrical Parade, which I think is really
now that you say, I haven't heard that quote, but that makes a lot of sense.
It's pretty great.
Yeah.
And so many others, but obviously 2001 probably being the number one, Interstellar maybe number two.
That makes sense. That's awesome, man. You guys knocked it out with the visuals, especially. Speaking of familiar visuals, there's one sequence I felt like the bones of a set looked familiar to me, and this is only because I pay so much attention. I think was the set where the Thing picked up the car. Yeah. The same place they did the Deadpool and Wolverine Deadpool core fight.
Parts of it. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So yes, good eyes. We used part of that backlot that they had built at Pinewood for that big fight with all the Deadpools.
Okay.
But if you remember that, it was sort of a V-shaped, Y-shaped kind of street. And so we tore down a bunch of it, rebuilt things, but a few of those storefronts and things are the same. Although, of course, we dressed up in the 60s, changed the names and the stores and changed a lot of the storefronts.
Yeah, that part looks different, but then the sort of street corner, I was like, maybe they... Yeah, I was like, that's cool that you guys use that. I saw Timely Comics in the background at one point, Westview Appliances, lots of Marvel Comics references, MCU Easter eggs for things that just point and have fun and be like, oh, that's a cool reference. Yeah. Do you have a particular favorite Easter egg in the movie?
Well, I mean, I did put in Westview just as a nod to WandaVision.
Had to.
I had to. Liked the Timely Comics one as well. Liked the two comic artists, in the window seeing the surfer for the first time. Definitely there were a lot of the things like that I, am excited about.
I think Sue is the heart and soul of the movie. We talked about how you made her such a strong character. I think you got Reed's stoicism so well. I love the relationship with Ben and Johnny. Can you talk about nailing that and getting their dynamic down where they have this like friendly banter where it's also a little bit like, we annoy each other.
Yeah. Those guys are great characters.
They're great, yes.
And they have been since the beginning. And that banter is such a part of them in the comics. It's been a part of them in other films. It's core to the DNA of the family, which is that they love each other so much, but they also just love giving each other grief, And, Johnny's like the kid brother for everybody, but especially for Ben in a way. Sue's so busy running the UN, the kind of Future Foundation in our movie, and there's just so much going on that like he and Ben have the most time to kind of just chill probably, especially now that there's a baby. But that dynamic between Joe Quinn and Eban, I mean, they're both amazing actors, but they had so much chemistry together, and a lot of improv in that movie, stuff that they came up with as we were going is them, really.
And I felt like the Thing had so much humanity in subtle ways that I'm really hoping we get to see even more of in the future, like in bringing his lady in and all that stuff was really cool. Can you talk about just Eban and what he brought to the humanity of the Thing and how you tried to capture that despite him being, big rock guy?
Yeah, I mean, that performance is all about the actor, right? Even though it's mocap and it's a lot of CG, it's Eban's performance in there. He's the heart and soul of that character, and he brings him to life. And humanity and kindness is a big part of it. But, you know, he has to be that kind of gruff exterior, but on the inside, he's the softest of them all, right? He is just like you just love that guy. And so I knew in meeting Eban, because I'd never worked with him before, but I loved his work and I've seen him in so many different things. I know his range is incredible. But just meeting him and talking to him, I was like, oh, I feel he's Ben Grimm. He's just like, he's got a little bit of that gruff exterior, but underneath of it, he's just such a sweet, he's devoted to his family. He's best dad. He's so funny. He's just, and you know, he just has so many of the characteristics personally that I would think of in that character. And so, you know, it was just a no-brainer.
Yeah.
And he's a New Yorker too.
But you put him in a Boston hat in this movie.
No, I put him in a Brooklyn Dodgers hat.
Oh my God, I'm an idiot.
Yeah. No. In my retro future 60s, the Brooklyn Dodgers don't go to LA; they stay.
I saw the B and I was like, wait a second, they're in New York. And I didn't. I'm an idiot for not even catching.
Well, it's funny. You know, it's in the comics where there's a run. I can't remember whose it is. They made him a Yankee fan, and it didn't sit right with me because that's, you know, those are the fat cats. That's the Upper East Side. Like, that doesn't make sense. So I talked to Neil Kirby, who's Jack's son, and I was like, he'd be a Dodger fan, right? And he was like, oh yeah, I was a Dodger fan. He'd be a Dodger fan.
Wait, do you have a baseball team?
Do I have a baseball team? Angels, yeah.
Oh, that's fair.
Yeah.
I'm a Yankees guy, so that's why I saw the B. I'm a Yankees guy. Like, wait a second, hold on.
Right. Yep.
I love how, you know, the opening montage. I talked about this. You had a lot of references to the lore, but we heard about Red Ghost. We saw the Super Apes. We saw a little bit of Mole Man in this movie, which I loved. I thought Paul Walter Hauser was great.
Yeah.
Given that Red Ghost was left on the cutting room floor for this movie, I feel like there's probably some backstory of Fantastic Four stuff that involves that character, especially given what Red Ghost does in comics.
Yes.
That we didn't see. Might we ever see that? And can you talk about what kind of was in those sequences?
Yeah, sure. I mean, we wanted to get the sense of history, right? We wanted these characters to feel lived in. We wanted the city to feel lived in. This is a real family. They've been doing this for 4 years. And so part of that was showing all the things they've done along the way, building the Future Foundation, defeating Red Ghost and Mad Thinker and Mole Man and all, brokering peace with Mole Man. It was all part of just sort of building a history for them. So we could then jump in and see this big moment when they change as a family, when a child is introduced. But yeah, we had an opening that involved a lot of action around the Red Ghost, and we had an incredible performance from John Malkovich. It just was so much material when we were trying to sort of get to that, you know, present day moment when their world changes, when the pregnancy happens, right, and Franklin's sort of arrival becomes imminent. So yeah, we had Red Ghost trying to steal a rocket ship with his apes, and Reed trying to defeat him and outwitting him, and they had a lot of really great fun stuff. And yeah, we used snippets of it in that montage. You see him sort of kicking one of the apes into the water. And,
when I thought he was going to be Red Ghost, I was like, are they going to do the Super Apes in this movie?
Yeah.
And they did make the movie.
Yeah, you can see it even in the credits, like Scott Stockdike, our amazing VFX supervisor. You can see Reed's getting his face pulled by the little baboon, which is an homage to Alex Ross.
Yeah, oh, dude, Alex Ross, my favorite comics artist. I love his work.
He's a genius.
The ending of the movie, I thought was great, especially with, you know, the emotion tied to Sue and Franklin and Pedro and Reed.
Yep.
I did feel like it was like reminiscent of the first Avengers in a way, when Tony makes a sacrifice and the Avengers form around him and they become a family. Did you have that in mind in any way when you had the family then around Sue, who made the sacrifice play in saving everybody and sort of then comes back, but you know, Franklin is who saves her?
Not on the top of mind, no. But maybe, you know, living in the unconscious, you know, underneath the surface somewhere. Yeah, sure. Somewhere.
Cool. I thought like maybe there's like parallels in the multiverse, like it could just make, you know, sometimes it's just happen. That's cool.
Yeah.
Franklin Richards, man, this is an important character of the MCU, and for Marvel Comics, you know, we know what this kid can do when he grows up.
Yes.
Can you talk about the power cosmic and introducing concepts like that through Fantastic Four First Steps?
Yeah, no, Franklin is hugely powerful. Franklin is this Omega level mutant, you know, in the comics, and I think for me, you know, what Franklin becomes, where those powers take him, was less important than what it did to Reed and Sue. You know, here are these people who were changed by cosmic radiation, who are nervous becoming parents in general. We all are nervous becoming parents in general. It's a scary thing, but imagine having...
I can barely raise a dog, dude. I don't... Hey, I'll do it.
Well, imagine having cosmically altered DNA, too, and, like, the nerves are just high. Like, you want your baby to be healthy. You want your baby to be okay. You worry about the future, and Reed's scanning the baby and baby-proofing and doing everything he can to be that neurotic dad, and yet something slips through that even he doesn't notice, which is that his child is more powerful powerful than they are. And then the future is so uncertain, and parental anxiety is one of the things I wanted to play with, because just what will become of him, and it kind of culminates at the end of the movie, with something that Sue says backstage, which is like, who knows what he will become, but he's here now. Like, we gotta love him now. He's here now.
I love the line of dialogue. It only takes a few good citizens
Yeah.
to change the world. I think
It's Margaret Mead, a real quote.
Was that something you found along the way, or did that sort of inspire the story as a whole?
No, it's actually a favorite quotation of mine from college, but it was Lulu Dillon, who worked on the movie, who found it and in post-production and suggested it for that moment.
So good.
Yeah, it's a great quotation, yeah.
It works so well in the context of this film, too.
Yeah.
Man, and so obviously we know this story goes on to see these characters somehow find themselves in Avengers Doomsday and Avengers Secret Wars.
Yep.
Did you end up having to collaborate in any way to say, like, okay, maybe we need to set a few things in motion for you guys, or did you just got to do your own separate universe Earth 828 thing?
We got to do our own thing, which was great. And then when the Russos came on and started to develop Avengers, they came in and watched a lot of our footage, watched dailies, watched scenes as they were cut, just so they could get to know these characters and the world that we were creating. They came and toured our sets, got to see what we were building, so they knew kind of, what they had as a foundation to kind of jump off from.
Did you do the credit scene?
Did I do the end credits?
Because I know Thunderbolts, the Russos did the credit scene.
The Russos did the tag, yeah.
So was that Downey in the suit? Or I guess you weren't there, maybe?
Yes. Yes.
Oh, dude, I thought that was a great tag, and that worked really well to say.
Yeah.
Of course, I have to ask, do you want to do another Fantastic Four movie?
Well,
have you already started thinking about it?
I mean, these are amazing characters, 60 plus years of comic history, amazing stories to tell. They're timeless for a reason, and yet they're also timely because they're talking about what we all go through as family,
Yeah.
And so I think there's a lot of good stories to tell there, and if it ends up being me who gets to tell them, that's exciting. But it's a great world.
It would be such a shift to see them in the 616 timeline.
Right.
Like, I mean, how do you think they would? Have you thought about how they would fit into a totally different? Like, this is retrofuturistic.
Yep.
MCU is based in our world.
Yes.
How do you think they'd fit into that sort of environment?
Well, I think there'd be some adjustment for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, they're obviously incredibly smart and capable, and Reed's 60s is so much more advanced than our 60s because of him and what he's done. So I think he'd be a kid in a candy shop, because he could see everything that the other people have innovated, and he could add to it. But there'd be a little fish out of waterness, in the same way that Captain America, coming from World War II to the present day, you got to adjust, and things are different.
I just imagine like the characters being like clobbering time. What's that mean? Because I don't know the catchphrase in 616. I'd be crazy if I didn't talk to you about Galactus and Silver Surfer.
Sure.
I saw the featurette you did where he was Ralph was in a Galactus suit.
Yes, he was.
How do you shoot Galactus to capture the scale? Are you going low to look up at him? Like, I would just love to get technical with you.
Yeah, of course.
And hear about.
Yeah. I mean, you shoot him like a miniature, basically. And we had miniatures in the movie, too, which is that when you have something that is not the right scale, we had a 14-foot-long rocket ship that was, definitely not at all to scale for the ship. The ship is huge. Same with Galactus. Ralph is not, 1,000 feet tall. So you film it by flooding it with a ton of light so that everything is in focus. Like when you film Mount Rushmore, everything is in focus, right? When you film one of our faces, things fall off just because of the way optics work with a face. So to begin with, we tried to create a lighting scenario and a sort of, lens scenario where we could film him with incredible depth of field where everything was sharp. And then beyond that, yes, we had scale cues like shooting him from very, very low angles as much as possible, always having something in frame of reference, so we're comping in tiny little Fantastic Four characters or Silver Surfer, because that's the trick really, and that was the biggest challenge of Galactus, is that he is huge on a ship that is huge, and everything on the ship is designed for him because he's the person who lives there. When you look at like the giant Star Destroyer in Star Wars, it's tiny little windows, tiny little doors. There are all these little scale hints that tell you this thing is enormous. How do you do that when the ship is all scaled to him, right? So it was about always finding ways to have something in the frame that could tell you that he's enormous.
And everybody's focused on Ralph's voice being perfect for Galactus, but I'd love to hear about like the physicality of moving as somebody that big. Did you have a specific way you had to direct him to capture his movement?
No, I mean, we putting on that suit is amazing.
The
beautiful suit built by Alex Byrne and her costume team.
Cool.
Such detail based on Ryan Meinerding's design, which is riffing off of Kirby. It's just, when you put on a tux, You stand up a little to the ground, you think you're James Bond, right? Put on a Galactus suit and you're Galactus, right? And then march around among, proxy buildings and you'll feel like a kaiju, So I think that informed a lot of what Ralph was doing, but it was also about stillness. This is a guy who's 14 billion years old. Like, everything moves very slow to him, so it was like he moves very little until he has to, right? Which is why this moment before he goes to Earth is such a moment of like, fuck, I gotta get up.
I gotta get up.
And I gotta go get that baby myself, And so it was about just imagining this giant cosmic entity and how he would be.
I'm gonna end on this because Silver Surfer's first scene, when she first arrived in their Times Square, it looked so good. Like I was convinced there was a real set of silver hair that you guys would. How did you make Silver, like Charlotte Ball, look so real in those moments where she's really featured in camera?
Yeah, I mean, she is a tricky one to bring to life just because of the reflections, right? So you almost have to light every single shot differently from the shot before because you want to maintain her facial features and to make her look consistent.
Right.
But depending on how things are being reflected or where light is hitting her, she could look completely different. So getting her to look consistent was a big part of it. Getting her to look real, I wanted her to look like an old mirror, copper veining and tarnished. She's been flying the stars for millions of years, and so I wanted to have that sense of age and history so she'd feel real. But then that scene is SPI, Sony Pictures, ImageWorks. They did an incredible job. But we had a mirrored Silver Surfer proxy head that we used, that we filmed in all environments to kind of be able to sort of reference what it would actually look like. And then it's Julia Garner, like just an amazing performance in there.
Brilliant.
That's rooting it in something real.
And when Johnny saw his face in her face, that was awesome, dude. That was so cool.
I always thought it was fun, the idea that Johnny Storm would fall in love with someone who basically was a mirror.
I thought the same thing.
Yeah.
I thought the same thing.
Yeah.
Matt, congratulations. I can't wait to see it again. I'm taking my mom to the premiere on Monday.
Okay, great.
And we're going to have a good time.
Awesome.
Congrats, dude. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good to see you.
Good to see you. Thank you very much.
BD here. Thank you so much for watching my interviews with the cast and director of Fantastic Four First Steps. If you enjoyed what you saw here, please make sure you're subscribed to the channel and stay tuned because we have more from Fantastic Four First Steps, San Diego Comic-Con, and a whole lot more coming to the channel. And it's because you guys like, subscribe, and support the channel at all that I get to come here and hang out with my good pal Herbie. Herbie, good to see you, bud. See you guys in the next video.